June 14th, 1943. Lincoln County High School, rural Pennsylvania. Geography teacher Cordelia Hartwell picks up a notebook belonging to 8th grader Wesley Drummond and sees a drawing that makes her blood run cold. It's not the map of the Appalachian Trail she'd assigned for homework. It's a sketch of a summer camp with red X marks over 3 cabins and a note in childish handwriting. __, quote _0 __. In the corner, a postscript. __, quote _1 __. Cordelia is 28 years old, has taught at Lincoln County High for 5 years since graduating from Pennsylvania State Teachers College, and grew up in these very hills. She knows every summer camp in the Tri-County area. Camp Victory Ridge is the most prestigious of them all, a model facility where only honor students and star pupils earn spots. Wesley Drummond is a straight-A student, winner of the regional mathematics competition, usually bright-eyed and talkative. He was that way before the first session of summer camp this year. He returned 4 days ago, and since then hasn't lifted his eyes from his desk, flinches at loud noises, sits alone during recess. Cordelia calls him after class. Wesley goes pale, grabs the notebook, stammers, "Sorry, Miss Hartwell, it's nothing, just fooling around," and bolts from the room. That evening, Cordelia telephones Wesley's mother. The woman answers after many rings, sounds exhausted. __, quote _3 __. Cordelia asks carefully whether Wesley mentioned anything unusual about camp. A pause. Then Wesley's mother speaks quietly. He woke up crying every night for a week after he came home. Said he was scared of Mr. Barnaby. I thought maybe a strict counselor. But when I asked for details, he said he couldn't tell because Mr. Barnaby would find out and then things would get worse. Miss Hartwell, do you think something's wrong there? Cordelia hangs up the phone and pulls out her class roster folder. This year, 21 students from Lincoln County High attended Camp Victory Ridge. She begins recalling their faces before and after camp. Peggy Crawford, 10th grade, used to be the loudest girl during lunch period, now walks with her head down. Robert Kellerman, 8th grade, refused to participate in gym class relay races, said he never wanted to run on command again. Dorothy Simmons, 7th grade. When her homeroom teacher asked her to share camp stories during morning assembly, she burst into tears and fled the auditorium. 21 children, and at least 5 returned changed. Cordelia Hartwell isn't just a teacher. She's the type who in college read not only textbooks but also articles on child psychology, who understands that a child's silence is sometimes louder than screaming. She was born in 1915 in these Pennsylvania hills, daughter of a railroad engineer and a county hospital nurse. She grew up in an atmosphere of American honesty. Her father never falsified shipping manifests his entire career. Her mother never accepted bribes for better ward assignments. Cordelia absorbed this integrity like air. She graduated high school valedictorian, attended Pennsylvania State Teachers College, earned her teaching certificate in 1938. 5 years teaching, active in the local Teachers Association, volunteer coordinator for war bond drives. She takes civic duties seriously, not as performance but as obligation to protect children's welfare. And right now, these children are silent from fear. Cordelia looks at the list of names and understands. She must act. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. Because in 10 days, a new session begins, and fresh children will go to Camp Victory Ridge. The next day, June 15th, Cordelia keeps Peggy Crawford after school. The girl sits at her desk staring out the window, and Cordelia notices her hands trembling slightly. The girl whips her head around, and in her eyes, pure terror. Cordelia sits beside her, speaks gently. __, quote __, Peggy stays silent for a long time, then whispers, __, quote _8 __. Cordelia feels cold fury igniting inside, but keeps her voice level. __, quote _9 __. Peggy covers her face with her hands. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 10, underscore, underscore. Cordelia writes everything in the notebook she always carries. Quote, 11. Peggy nods. Quote, 12. Cordelia asks more. Quote, 13. Peggy looks at her with exhaustion in her eyes. Quote, 14. The girl goes quiet, then adds very softly, underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 15, underscore, underscore. Cordelia sends Peggy home and stays in the classroom alone. Outside, the June evening is warm and bright, children playing in the schoolyard. And somewhere 50 miles away in the Allegheny Hills, Camp Victory Ridge is preparing its second session. New children will go there in 10 days. Cordelia opens her notebook, rereads her notes. Forced labor on the director's personal property, psychological manipulation, isolation as punishment, witness intimidation. This isn't just violations, it's a systematic pattern of abuse. Silas Barnaby, camp director, has turned a youth recreational facility into his personal operation. And the most disturbing part? He's been doing this for years. Camp Victory Ridge opened in 1938. Barnaby has run it since inception. 5 years, 3 sessions annually, minimum 80 children per session. How many have passed through his system? Over 1,000. How many damaged by this experience? Cordelia thinks about what to do. First impulse, go to the principal. But she already knows what Mr. Henderson will say. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 16, underscore, underscore. Second option, go to the county school superintendent's office. But they know Barnaby too. He's in good standing. Third option, police. But what will she tell them? Without evidence, they won't listen. Cordelia understands. She needs evidence. Solid, irrefutable, the kind that can't be dismissed. She decides on a different approach. June 16, 1943, Cordelia goes to the regional office of the American Youth Service League, a civilian organization coordinating educational and recreational programs for young people during wartime. She's been a volunteer since 1940, 3 years of impeccable service organizing scrap drives and victory garden projects. The assistant director, Mr. Vernon Clark, a thin man about 40 with tired eyes, meets her in the reception area. Cordelia presents the situation concisely. At Camp Victory Ridge, there may be serious violations. Children are returning traumatized. There's evidence of forced labor and psychological manipulation. Clark listens, takes notes, then shakes his head. Quote 17. Cordelia answers firmly. Quote 18. Clark thinks for a moment, then says, underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 19, underscore, underscore. Cordelia thanks him and leaves. Walking home, she feels a mixture of relief and anxiety. She understands that in 8 days she'll be inside the system that's harming children, and she'll have to pretend not to see it until she gathers sufficient evidence. June 24, 1943, morning. Cordelia boards the county bus heading to Camp Victory Ridge. She carries a small suitcase with her belongings and a canvas bag with notebooks and pencils. Among the passengers are children, boys and girls ages 12 to 16, excited, chattering about swimming and archery and campfires. Cordelia looks at their faces and feels a weight in her chest. In 2 weeks, these children might be like Wesley Drummond, silent and fearful. The bus winds through mountain roads, past dense pine forests, past small farms where women work fields while their husbands fight overseas. After 2 hours, they arrive. Camp Victory Ridge spreads across a clearing surrounded by woods. Main lodge of dark timber, a dozen cabins in neat rows, mess hall, recreation building, American flags snapping in the wind over the assembly ground. At first glance, it looks ideal. Clean, orderly, exactly what a summer camp should be. But Cordelia notices details others might miss. The cabins are positioned so they face the main lodge, like spokes to a hub. There are no trees near the cabins providing shade or privacy. Everything is visible from the central point. And far at the edge of camp, partially hidden by pines, stands an old building with boarded windows, the isolation building. Children file off the bus. Counselors greet them cheerfully and lead them to cabins for unpacking. Cordelia is met by a young woman about 25, blonde hair in a tight bun, nervous smile. Miss Hartwell? I'm Margaret Ellis, head counselor. Mr. Barnaby is expecting you in his office. They walk to the main lodge. Inside smells of pine sap and floor wax. Barnaby's office is at the end of a hallway, door open. Cordelia enters and sees him. Tall man, early 50s, silver hair immaculately combed, white shirt with sleeves rolled precisely to mid-forearm, American flag pin on his collar. He's standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back like a military officer. He turns and smiles, but Cordelia notices immediately. His eyes don't smile. They're cold, assessing, calculating. Miss Hartwell, welcome to Victory Ridge. Vernon Clark spoke highly of you. We're grateful for your service. His voice is smooth, cultured, the accent of someone educated back east. He gestures to a chair. Cordelia sits. Barnaby remains standing, a subtle power move. You'll be supervising the girls in Cabin 7, ages 13 to 15. Fine young ladies, all excellent students. Our program here is rigorous but rewarding. We believe in discipline, hard work, and building character. America needs strong citizens, especially now with our boys fighting overseas. We're preparing the next generation. He speaks like he's giving a radio address. Cordelia nods politely. __, quote _ 23 __. He studies her for a moment, and she feels examined like a specimen under glass. Then he smiles again. __, quote _ 24 __. Cordelia thanks him and leaves. Walking back across camp, she notices Barnaby watching from his window. That evening, first assembly. All campers and staff gather on the assembly ground as the sun sets behind the mountains. Barnaby stands on a wooden platform, the American flag behind him. He begins speaking, voice carrying across the clearing without shouting. Clearly, he's done this many times. Welcome, young Americans, to Camp Victory Ridge. You are here not merely for recreation, but for growth and development. The world outside is at war. Your brothers, fathers, uncles fight tyranny across oceans. Here, you will learn the virtues that make our nation great. Discipline, sacrifice, loyalty. You will work hard. You will overcome challenges. You will emerge stronger. So far, standard patriotic rhetoric. Then his tone shifts, becomes more intimate, almost confessional. Many of you come from homes where you are not fully understood, where your potential is overlooked, where adults are too busy, too distracted to guide you properly. I am different. I see your potential. I will help shape you into what you should be. Trust me, follow my guidance, and you will thank me for the rest of your lives. Cordelia watches the children's faces. Some look inspired, swept up in his words. Others, the ones from the first session, required to return for additional leadership development, stare at the ground. One boy, maybe 14, is visibly uncomfortable. After the speech, counselors lead campers to their cabins. Cordelia walks with her girls. They're chatting, nervous but excited. One asks, Miss Hartwell, is it true we get to swim every day? Cordelia answers gently, We'll see what the schedule is, dear. She doesn't want to alarm them yet. Second day, June 25th. Morning assembly at 6. Children emerge from cabins, half asleep. Barnaby inspects the rows like a drill sergeant. One boy's shirt is untucked. Barnaby stops in front of him, voice sharp. Your appearance reflects your discipline, son. Sloppy clothes, sloppy mind. 20 push-ups, now. The boy drops and does push-ups while everyone watches. After assembly, breakfast, thin porridge and stale bread. Then, work assignments. Cordelia expected recreational activities, swimming, hiking, crafts. Instead, Barnaby announces, "Today we begin our community service project. We're building a recreation hall that will serve this camp for generations. You'll learn carpentry, masonry, teamwork. This is practical education." The so-called recreation hall is located half a mile from camp, on a plot of land that Cordelia later learns is privately owned by Silas Barnaby. This isn't a camp building. It's his personal property. Children are divided into work crews. Boys haul lumber and mix concrete. Girls carry supplies, paint, clean tools. Counselors supervise, but it's clear they're under pressure. Margaret Ellis constantly glances toward Barnaby, fearful of making mistakes. Cordelia is assigned to supervise a group of girls sanding window frames. The work is hard, repetitive, in blazing sun. By noon, the girls are exhausted, hands blistered. One girl, Sarah, age 14, sits down and says she feels dizzy. Cordelia tells her to rest in the shade. Barnaby appears suddenly, face darkening. "What's the problem here?" Cordelia explains calmly. Barnaby stares at Sarah. "Dizziness is often lack of determination, young lady. We don't encourage weakness at Victory Ridge. Stand up and finish your work." Sarah stands, tears streaming, hands shaking as she resumes sanding. Cordelia's jaw tightens, but she says nothing. Not yet. That night, Cordelia writes in her notebook. She records everything: hours of labor, conditions, Barnaby's methods, the fact that this camp project is his personal construction. She hides the notebook in her suitcase under a false bottom she created by carefully separating the lining. Over the following days, the pattern becomes clear. Children work from 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening with one brief lunch break. No swimming, no recreation, no rest. Those who complain or slow down face consequences. Cordelia witnesses a boy named Thomas sent to the isolation building for saying he had a headache and couldn't lift any more timber. She watches Barnaby lock the door himself. Thomas stays there overnight. When released the next morning, he's shaking, won't speak. Cordelia approaches him later. __quote _33 __. He just stares at her with empty eyes. That evening, she tries to comfort him, brings him extra water at dinner. Margaret Ellis pulls her aside urgently. Quote, 34. Cordelia asks, quote, 35. Margaret looks around nervously. Quote, 36. July 2nd, 1 week into the session. Cordelia has documented a systematic pattern: forced labor without compensation on private property, psychological manipulation, isolation as punishment, denial of basic care, intimidation of anyone who might speak out. She needs to get this information out, but there's a problem. Barnaby controls all mail leaving camp. He personally reviews every letter children write home, removes anything he considers negative. Cordelia saw him destroy a girl's letter that mentioned being tired and homesick. She needs a way to communicate with Vernon Clark or the authorities without Barnaby knowing. She decides on a calculated risk. That evening, she volunteers to go into town for medical supplies. One of the counselors needs aspirin. Barnaby agrees. Cordelia drives the camp truck 15 miles to the nearest town, Lancaster Mills. At the general store, she buys aspirin, then asks to use the telephone. She calls Clark's office. He answers, "Cordelia? What's happening?" She speaks quickly, quietly. "Everything I feared is accurate. Actually worse. Forced child labor on his personal property, psychological control methods, improper punishments. I have documentation. But I can't leave. If I do, the children will face retaliation. I need you to contact the state authorities. Get inspectors here immediately." Clark's voice is grave. Quote 39, quote 40. Clark promises to act. Cordelia hangs up, buys the aspirin, drives back. When she arrives, Barnaby is waiting in the lodge. __, quote _41 __. Cordelia's heart pounds, but she keeps her face neutral. The drugstore was crowded, Mr. Barnaby. War rationing has people waiting in lines. He studies her, then nods slowly. Of course. These are difficult times. Thank you for your dedication. He walks away. Cordelia realizes he suspects something. She needs to be even more careful. July 5th. Cordelia notices Barnaby watching her constantly now. At meals, his eyes follow her. During work sessions, he appears near her group more frequently. She maintains her role, pleasant, compliant, never questioning his directives. But inside, she's concerned. If he discovers her real purpose before the authorities arrive, the situation could become dangerous. That night, she lies awake in her cabin, listening to crickets and distant sounds of children crying in their sleep. She thinks about her father, the railroad engineer who always said, quote, 44. She's set truth in motion. Now she has to wait until it arrives. July 8th. Still no inspectors. Cordelia grows anxious. Did Clark fail to reach them? Did bureaucracy delay action? She can't call again, too suspicious. She focuses on documenting more evidence, taking careful notes whenever she's alone. Then, she notices something troubling. Barnaby gathers the counselors one evening, Cordelia included. He announces, "We have a situation. Someone has been spreading false information about our program. Unfounded allegations intended to undermine our mission. I want you all to be vigilant. If you hear any camper or staff member saying inappropriate things about Victory Ridge, report it to me immediately. Disloyalty will not be tolerated." He looks directly at Cordelia as he says this. She feels her stomach drop, but meets his gaze steadily. After the meeting, Margaret Ellis whispers to her, "He knows someone contacted outside authorities. Be very careful." Cordelia realizes Clark must have made initial inquiries that alerted Barnaby. The man has connections in county government. He would have heard whispers of an investigation. Now he's searching for the source. Cordelia decides she must take more decisive action. July 10th. Cordelia seizes an opportunity. During the work shift, she's supervising girls near the property boundary. She tells them she needs to check the tool storage and slips into the woods. She's memorized the route to the nearest neighbor, a farm about 2 miles through forest. She runs, branches catching her skirt, sweat soaking her blouse. She reaches the farm, breathless. An elderly woman answers the door, suspicious. Cordelia says, the woman hesitates, then lets her in. Cordelia calls the state police directly. A sergeant answers. Cordelia identifies herself, speaks rapidly. Quote, 49. The sergeant sounds skeptical. Quote, 50. Quote, 51. The sergeant pauses, then, quote, 52. After 5 minutes, he returns. Quote, 53. Quote, 54. Cordelia hangs up, thanks the farm woman, runs back to camp. When she emerges from the woods, Margaret Ellis is waiting, face pale. Underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore. 55 underscore underscore. Cordelia returns to the main lodge. Barnaby is in his office, standing by his desk. When she enters, he closes the door. His face is no longer pleasant. Underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore. 56 underscore underscore. Cordelia's mind races. She chooses directness. I'm here because children came back from your camp changed, frightened. I'm here because what you're doing violates every principle of child welfare. You're using these children as unpaid labor. You're controlling them through fear. And it ends today. Barnaby stares at her, then laughs, a cold, harsh sound. You naive fool. Do you know who I am? I have letters from the governor. I sit on the State Youth Development Commission. I know judges, police chiefs, county supervisors. Who do you think they'll believe? A decorated camp director or an interfering school teacher? Cordelia stands her ground. They'll believe evidence, and I have documentation. His expression shifts to anger. You have nothing, and you'll leave this camp immediately before you cause more damage. He grabs her arm, pulls her toward the door. Cordelia pulls free. Don't touch me. He moves to grab her again, and suddenly the door opens. 3 state police officers enter, led by a captain with a stern face. Mr. Barnaby? Captain James Randolph, Pennsylvania State Police. We're here on a report of child endangerment and labor law violations. Step away from Miss Hartwell immediately. Barnaby's face goes white, then red. Quote, _63 ___. Captain Randolph cuts him off. Quote, 64. Barnaby protests. Quote, 65. Quote, 66. For the first time, Cordelia sees Barnaby's composure crack completely. He looks panicked, trapped. The captain assigns an officer to watch him and turns to Cordelia. Miss Hartwell, you're the complainant? Yes, sir. We'll need your statement and evidence, but first we need to secure the children's safety. Over the next 3 hours, the investigation unfolds. Police interview children one by one. Counselors are separated and questioned. Cordelia provides her notebook, explains everything she witnessed. The officers inspect the construction site, clearly Barnaby's private property. They examine the isolation building, find it exactly as described, windowless, unheated, evidence of use. One officer emerges looking disturbed. ___, quote, _70 ___. A policewoman interviews the girls from Cordelia's cabin. Sarah, the girl punished for dizziness, breaks down and tells everything. Others follow. Once one speaks, others find courage. 28 children provide statements describing forced labor, psychological manipulation, threats, isolation, punishment. The officers document physical evidence. Blistered hands, bruises, one boy with an infected cut from carpentry work that wasn't properly treated. By evening, the pattern is undeniable. Captain Randolph arrests Silas Barnaby at 7 p.m. on charges of child endangerment, illegal labor practices, assault, and false imprisonment. Barnaby is led away in handcuffs, still protesting. ___, quote, _71 ___. The children watch from the mess hall windows. Some are crying, some are silent, some look relieved. Cordelia stands with them, one arm around Sarah, who's shaking. Margaret Ellis approaches, eyes red. I'm sorry. I should have done something sooner. I was just so afraid of him. Cordelia doesn't have energy for anger. __, quote, _73 ___. Margaret nods. Parents are contacted. By midnight, cars are arriving to pick up children early. The camp is shut down pending full investigation. Cordelia gives her statement to Captain Randolph, provides her documentation. He reviews her notes and says, quote, 74. She's exhausted but feels a measure of satisfaction. Will it be enough to convict him? With this many witness statements in your documentation, I'm confident it will be. Cordelia allows herself a moment of relief. Then she asks, what about the children? Many of them are going to need support. Randolph nods grimly. County Health Department will follow up. I'll recommend counseling services be made available. Cordelia thinks, it's not enough, but it's a start. The trial takes place in October 1943 at the Lincoln County Courthouse. Silas Barnaby is charged with 23 criminal counts, including child endangerment, forced labor, assault, false imprisonment, fraud for billing parents for recreational programs while using children for construction work, and corruption for using his political connections to avoid previous inspections. The prosecution presents overwhelming evidence. Cordelia testifies for 4 hours, methodically describing what she witnessed. Her documentation is entered as evidence: dates, times, specific incidents, names of victims and witnesses. 28 children testify, some with parents beside them for support. Wesley Drummond takes the stand and describes being sent to the isolation building for 3 nights. His voice breaks when he says, I thought nobody would ever come for me. I thought everyone had forgotten about us. Sarah testifies about being forced to work despite feeling ill. Robert Kellerman describes Barnaby's psychological control tactics, the constant message that their parents were inadequate and only he could guide them properly. The defense attorney, a lawyer from Philadelphia Barnaby hired, tries to portray it as a misunderstanding. __quote _80 __. The prosecutor, a determined woman named Eleanor Frost, dismantles this argument. __quote _80 __. The jury deliberates for 6 hours. They return with guilty verdicts on 18 of 23 counts. The judge, a stern man named Walter Keene, sentences Barnaby to 8 years in state prison, strips him of all civic honors, and bans him permanently from working with children. Before sentencing, Barnaby is allowed to speak. He stands, still defiant. Judge Keene responds coldly. After the trial, Cordelia returns to teaching. She expects recognition, but instead faces unexpected backlash. Principal Henderson calls her into his office. Cordelia is stunned. Quote 85, quote 86, quote 87. Henderson's face hardens. That's insubordinate. The reprimand stands. Consider yourself fortunate. I'm not recommending termination. Cordelia leaves his office shaking with anger and disbelief. But that evening she receives a phone call. It's Eleanor Frost, the prosecutor. __quote _89 __. Cordelia doesn't feel like a hero. She feels exhausted and disillusioned by the system's response. But Frost continues. __quote _90 __. Cordelia considers this. Staying at Lincoln County High means working under Henderson's resentment. But this new position could allow her to protect children on a much larger scale. Yes, she says, I'm very interested. In January 1944, Cordelia begins work for the Pennsylvania Department of Education as a youth program safety inspector. Her job is to visit summer camps, youth programs, and recreational facilities across the state, ensuring compliance with child welfare regulations. It's challenging work. She faces hostility from directors who resent oversight, bureaucratic obstacles from officials who see her as causing trouble. But she persists. Over the next 3 years, she inspects dozens of facilities, shuts down 2 for serious violations, forces improvements at many others. She develops training programs for camp counselors, creates written standards for acceptable practices, establishes confidential reporting mechanisms for children and staff to report concerns. In 1946, she's promoted to regional coordinator for youth safety programs. By 1948, she's recognized nationally as an expert on child welfare and recreational settings. She speaks at education conferences, publishes articles in professional journals, trains inspectors across multiple states. In 1950, she marries Thomas Brennan, a widowed history teacher she met at a conference. They settle in Harrisburg and have a daughter, Jennifer, in 1952. Cordelia continues working, unusual for married women at the time, but Thomas supports her career fully. He understands that this work isn't merely a job for her, it's a calling. In 1955, Cordelia is appointed Deputy Director of the state's Child Welfare Division. She oversees all youth programs in Pennsylvania, leads a team of 20 inspectors, influences policy at the highest levels of government. Meanwhile, Silas Barnaby serves his full 8-year sentence at Eastern State Penitentiary. He's released in 1951, age 59, broken in health and spirit. The permanent ban on working with children holds, so he takes a job as a night watchman at a warehouse in Philadelphia. He lives alone in a boarding house, estranged from family. His brother disowned him after the trial. He's visited by no one. He dies in 1957 from a heart attack, age 65. His obituary in the Philadelphia Inquirer is 3 sentences long and doesn't mention Camp Victory Ridge. Cordelia learns of his death from a colleague who happened to see the notice. She feels nothing, no satisfaction, no grief. Justice was served years ago. The man's lonely death is merely a footnote. What matters are the children who were protected. In 1960, Cordelia is Deputy Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Education, one of the highest-ranking women in state government. She's fought for nearly 2 decades for children's rights, establishing protections that are now considered standard across the country. Her daughter Jennifer, age 8, sometimes asks, "Mommy, why do you work so much?" Cordelia sits with her and explains, "Because there are children who need someone to protect them, and I have the ability to do that, so I have a responsibility to act." Jennifer seems to understand, even at her young age. In 1965, Cordelia testifies before the United States Congress at hearings about child labor laws. She describes her experience at Camp Victory Ridge, explains how existing regulations failed to prevent abuse, proposes federal standards. Some of her recommendations are incorporated into the Fair Labor Standards Act amendments of 1966. In 1970, Cordelia retires from state government at age 55, but she doesn't stop working for children. She volunteers with child advocacy organizations, serves on nonprofit boards, mentors young teachers entering the field. Her daughter Jennifer graduates from college in 1974 and becomes a social worker specializing in child trauma. Cordelia sometimes thinks her actions in 1943 influenced her daughter's chosen path. Jennifer knows her mother's story, is proud of it, and says, quote, 95, In 1980, Cordelia receives a letter. The sender is Sarah Mitchell, the girl from Camp Victory Ridge who had collapsed from heat exhaustion. Now, Sarah is a pediatrician in Pittsburgh, married with 3 children. She writes, quote, 96, Cordelia reads the letter several times, tears streaming down her face. She writes back. They begin corresponding and eventually meet for lunch. Sarah brings her children and introduces them to Cordelia. Quote, 97, The children look at Cordelia with admiration and respect. In 1985, on the 42nd anniversary of the Camp Victory Ridge closure, a small ceremony is held in Lincoln County. The location where the camp once stood, now a state park, receives a memorial plaque. It reads, quote, 98, Cordelia attends, now 70 years old, white-haired but still sharp-minded. Several of the former campers come, middle-aged now, with families of their own. They gather around her, sharing stories of their lives. Wesley Drummond is an engineer who designed bridges across Pennsylvania. Robert Kellerman teaches high school mathematics. Dorothy Simmons runs a youth counseling center. Each of them credits Cordelia with giving them hope for their futures. Wesley says, Cordelia embraces him. In 1995, Cordelia is 80 years old, living in a Harrisburg retirement community. Her husband Thomas passed away in 1992, and she misses him every day. But she finds purpose in her grandchildren. Jennifer's 3 children, ages 15, 12, and 9, visit often. Cordelia tells them stories of her life, not to boast, but to teach important lessons. When you see injustice, she says, speak up, even if you're afraid, especially if you're afraid. Fear is just a feeling. Duty is a choice. The oldest grandson, Matthew, asks, Grandma, were you scared when you went to that camp? Cordelia answers honestly, terrified, every single day. But the children were more scared than I was, so I had to find courage for them. In 2000, Cordelia receives an award from the National Education Association, the Lifetime Achievement in Child Advocacy Award. At the ceremony in Washington, D.C., she's introduced by Sarah Mitchell, who now serves on the NEA board. Sarah describes Cordelia's actions in 1943, how one teacher's courage saved dozens of children and changed systemic practices nationwide. Cordelia accepts the award and gives a brief speech. underscore underscore quote underscore 106 underscore underscore. The audience gives her a standing ovation that lasts 3 minutes. Cordelia stands there, deeply moved, thinking of that June day in 1943 when she picked up Wesley Drummond's notebook and saw that devastating drawing. In 2005, Cordelia turns 90. Her health is declining, arthritis, poor vision, hearing aids, but her mind remains sharp. Jennifer organizes a birthday celebration. Over 100 people attend, former students, colleagues, the survivors of Camp Victory Ridge, now in their 70s, along with their children and grandchildren. Wesley Drummond, now 85, stands to give a toast. Cordelia Hartwell taught me geography, but she taught me something far more important, that adults can be trusted to do the right thing, that not everyone will fail you when you need help. For 62 years, I've carried that lesson. It made me a better father, a better citizen, a better man. Happy birthday, Miss Hartwell. We love you. Cordelia weeps openly. Later, she tells Jennifer, I've had a good life. I helped people. That's all anyone can ask for. Jennifer squeezes her hand. You did more than help, Mom. You saved lives, changed systems, inspired generations of people to stand up for what's right. Cordelia smiles softly. I hope so. I truly hope so. Cordelia Hartwell dies peacefully in her sleep on March 12, 2008, 3 months shy of her 93rd birthday. Her obituary runs in major newspapers across Pennsylvania and is picked up by the Associated Press. It details her career, her advocacy work, her role in exposing the Camp Victory Ridge abuse. Her funeral is attended by over 300 people. The eulogy is delivered by Dr. Sarah Mitchell, now 79. Cordelia Hartwell was a teacher, a mother, a public servant. But more than that, she was a guardian. When children suffered, she acted. When systems failed, she worked to change them. When wrongdoing prospered, she fought against it. She showed us what moral courage looks like in action. We are all here today, healthy, whole, with families and futures, because she chose not to look away. After the service, mourners gather at a reception. They share memories and stories. Wesley Drummond describes the day Cordelia called him after class in 1943, how her concern made him feel seen for the first time in weeks. Robert Kellerman recalls testifying at the trial, how Cordelia sat in the courtroom every single day giving him strength through her presence. Dorothy Simmons talks about how Cordelia's example inspired her to become a counselor herself. Dozens of people, some who knew her personally, others who benefited from the policies she created, all connected by one thread. Cordelia Hartwell refused to let children suffer in silence. The legacy endures and grows. In 2010, Pennsylvania establishes the Cordelia Hartwell Child Safety Award, given annually to educators who demonstrate exceptional commitment to child welfare. In 2015, a documentary about Camp Victory Ridge and Cordelia's investigation airs on PBS, bringing the story to a national audience and sparking conversations about child protection and youth programs. In 2020, Cordelia's granddaughter Emma, who is Jennifer's daughter, publishes a book titled The Geography of Courage: How One Teacher Changed Child Welfare in America. It becomes a bestseller and is used in education programs across the country. But perhaps the most fitting memorial is quieter and more personal. Every year on June 14th, the day Cordelia first saw Wesley's drawing, Sarah Mitchell and the surviving Camp Victory Ridge children who are still alive gather at the State Park Memorial. They stand in silence for 1 minute, remembering the fear, the pain, and the rescue. Then, they share a meal together and talk about their lives, their grandchildren, their joys. And they toast Cordelia Hartwell, the geography teacher who taught them that one person's courage can indeed change the world. The story of Cordelia Hartwell and Silas Barnaby is more than history. It's a reminder that wrongdoing often hides behind respectability, that children's silence can signal deep pain, that institutions sometimes protect those who abuse power, and that one person willing to act can shatter systems of cruelty. Cordelia understood a truth many forget. Protecting children isn't optional, isn't conditional on convenience or career safety. It's the fundamental duty of every adult in society. When she picked up that notebook in 1943 and saw the drawing of a camp with red X marks and the words underscore underscore quote underscore 113 underscore underscore, she faced a choice. She could ignore it. She could report it through official channels and hope someone else would act. Or she could put herself at risk to investigate personally. She chose the hardest path, and because she did, 28 children were saved from further trauma. Hundreds were spared from future sessions, and an entire system of oversight was reformed to better protect young people. That June evening in 1943, walking home from school after calling Wesley's mother, Cordelia Hartwell was simply a 28-year-old geography teacher with a troubling suspicion. By July, she had become something more, a defender of children who had no other defender. But she never saw herself as extraordinary. "I just did what needed doing," she would say when asked about her actions. "Anyone would have done the same." But that's not accurate. Many wouldn't have. Many didn't. Colleagues who noticed troubled children but said nothing. Administrators who dismissed concerns to avoid controversy. Officials who accepted Barnaby's reputation without scrutiny. Camp counselors who witnessed abuse but feared retaliation. Cordelia was different not because she was naturally braver, but because she refused to let fear override her sense of duty. The children who survived Camp Victory Ridge carried scars, some visible, most not. But they also carried something else. Proof that someone cared enough to fight for them. Wesley Drummond, in his 80s, told an interviewer, "For years after that summer, I had nightmares about that place. But I also had this knowledge. Miss Hartwell came for us. Someone saw we were hurting and took action. That knowledge balanced the nightmares, made them bearable, and eventually helped me heal." This is Cordelia's true legacy. Not just the policies she shaped, the regulations she wrote, the programs she reformed, though those protected countless children. Her deepest impact was showing vulnerable kids that they mattered, that their suffering wasn't invisible, that justice was possible. In a world where children often feel powerless, that's truly revolutionary. Silas Barnaby represented a type of wrongdoing that still exists today. The charismatic authority figure who exploits power over the vulnerable, wraps cruelty and rhetoric about character building and discipline, uses institutional prestige as protection against accountability. He wasn't a monster from nightmares. He was a respected community member, recognized by the governor's office, trusted by parents. That made him more dangerous, not less. Cordelia understood this. She knew she would face resistance, disbelief, and retaliation. She knew her principal would be angry. She knew Barnaby's defenders would call her a troublemaker. She knew that even a conviction might not repair her professional reputation. She did it anyway. Why? Because when you're a teacher, those children are yours to protect. When you see a frightened 12-year-old's drawing showing places marked, "Don't go here, ever," you don't file it away and forget about it. You act. Years later, in 1998, Cordelia gave an interview to an education journal. The interviewer asked, quote, Cordelia thought for a long moment, then answered, quote, the interviewer pressed, quote, Cordelia shook her head, underscore, underscore, quote, underscore. This self-reflection was characteristic of who she was. Cordelia never congratulated herself, never rested on past accomplishments. She held herself to standards higher than anyone else imposed, which is why, perhaps, she accomplished so much. People who are satisfied with their past rarely work to change the future. In her final years, living in the retirement community, Cordelia would sit in the common room and watch news programs about child abuse scandals in churches, schools, sports organizations. Each new revelation troubled her deeply. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 122, underscore, underscore. Jennifer would try to comfort her. underscore underscore quote underscore 123 underscore underscore. Cordelia would respond with conviction. Underscore underscore quote underscore 124 underscore underscore. She was right, of course. The patterns persist because systems prioritize self-protection over child protection. Because adults find it easier to doubt children than to confront powerful wrongdoers. Because speaking up carries personal risk while silence carries none. For the adult, anyway. The children always pay the price of that silence. Cordelia refused to make children pay for her comfort. That's the lesson of her life. Not that she was uniquely heroic, but that she made a choice available to everyone. Believe children when they signal distress. Investigate when you see warning signs. Act, even when it's personally difficult. Most people have opportunities to make this choice at some point in their lives. The teacher who notices a student's sudden personality change, the neighbor who hears concerning sounds from next door, the volunteer who observes inappropriate behavior from a colleague, the administrator who receives a troubling report. At those moments, we choose: investigate or ignore, act or defer, risk ourselves or risk the child. Cordelia chose children, every single time, even when it cost her professionally and personally. That's why, decades after her death, her name still appears in education textbooks, why her story is taught in child psychology courses, why the award bearing her name is considered one of teaching's highest honors. Not because she was superhuman, but because she was human in the best sense, capable of courage, driven by conscience, unwilling to abandon the vulnerable. The children of Camp Victory Ridge are mostly gone now themselves. Wesley Drummond passed away in 2018 at age 88. Robert Kellerman in 2016 at age 87. They spent their final years ensuring Cordelia's story wouldn't be forgotten. They gave interviews, wrote memoirs, spoke at schools and universities. They wanted young people to understand an important truth. One person really can make a difference. Wrongdoing relies on good people's silence. Break that silence and wrongdoing loses its power. And so, Cordelia Hartwell's life stands as both testament and challenge. Testament that moral courage exists, that systems can be changed, that children can be saved from harm. Challenge to every person who witnesses something wrong and must decide: speak or stay silent, act or turn away, become part of the solution or remain part of the problem. Cordelia chose to speak, to act, to solve. Because she did, specific children lived better lives. Because she did, thousands of other children benefited from reform she championed over her career. Because she did, we know that a single geography teacher armed with nothing but a notebook, evidence, and determination can bring down a powerful wrongdoer and transform an entire system of child protection. That's the geography of courage Cordelia Hartwell mapped. Territory where ordinary people face extraordinary choices and sometimes rise to meet them. She showed us that terrain isn't reserved for saints or heroes. It's available to anyone willing to pick up a child's notebook, see a frightening drawing inside, and refuse to look away. That's all it takes. That refusal to look away, that decision to act. Cordelia gave everything to that decision. And the children she saved, and the children they raised, and the children those children raised, carry forward her legacy. The conviction that protecting the vulnerable is everyone's duty. That silence in the face of cruelty is a form of participation, and that one person's courage can echo across generations. On June 14, 1943, a teacher saw a child's drawing and decided to act. The world changed because of it. Not the whole world, perhaps, but the world of 28 specific children and all the people whose lives they touched, and all the systems reformed because of their testimony. That's not everything, but it's more than enough. It's everything that truly mattered. And Cordelia Hartwell knew it. She lived it. She proved it. And her story endures as a beacon for anyone who faces that same choice: to see wrong and turn away, or to see wrong and stand up. Cordelia stood up, and because she did, generations of children sleep safer at night.